the scent of potpourri, the films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at obsessiveviewer.com, and while every episode will always be free, if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for tons of bonus audio content, including TV and book reviews, immediate reaction movie reviews, Patreon potpourri episodes, movie commentary tracks, and early access to anything we release. I'm your host, Matt Hurd, and with me today is, of course, Tiny, and a recurring co-host, and creator of themoviestate.com, Mr. Ben Sears. How is it going, you guys, this evening?
Going good, man.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Very nice. And yes, so today on the show, we are going to be continuing our series covering the movies on Roger Ebert's Great Movies list. In this installment, we'll be sharing our thoughts on Fritz Lang's M, Spielberg's The Color Purple, and Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. But first, Ben, why don't you tell us what's new and what's coming up on your website, themoviestate.com?
Yeah, we're in the thick of fall festival season. So really exciting stuff coming out soon. Hopefully I'll have a review of Blonde,
nice.
the Ana de Armas Andrew Dominik movie relatively soon. What else? Weekly episodic reviews of the Lord of the Rings show, The Rings of Power.
Nice.
Just a couple other random things. I am excited to announce, though, I'll be starting a new feature on the website this month. So we talked a lot in Patreon about TV shows and the Emmys and stuff we've been watching on the TV side, but I'm going to be doing a new TV project where I go, full disclosure, this is more or less something that I am stealing from Todd Vanderwerf, or Emily Vanderwerf, sorry. Or maybe it was Alan Sepinwall, I forget who did it originally, where they would go back and they would just pick a random season of a random TV show and just review episode by episode. So that's what I'll be doing. But the concept is that I'll be scheduling it around seasons of the year. So starting the first day of fall, I'll be starting a new TV show, starting the first day of winter, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice. And
the first season, the first TV show that I'll be talking about is season 2 of Community.
Oh, so, nice.
A show that I love and haven't rewatched since it originally aired, so I'm excited to check that out. Weekly reviews starting on, what is the 22nd?
That would be Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just check that out every Thursday, and I'll probably do, I think, 2 episodes at a time, and
nice.
If anyone has any suggestions for future installments, I'd be happy to take suggestions. I've got a list going currently, but welcome to any suggestions.
Sweet.
I don't want to do like The Wire or Breaking Bad or Sopranos or I don't know, just because I feel like those have already been covered well enough.
Oh yeah.
But
so did anything in particular go into your decision to like cover Community this time around, or
not really, just that was a really formative show for me, I feel like. So and like I said, I haven't rewatched any of it since it originally aired, so I'm wondering if it holds up as well. And I just remember that was like one of, if not the best season of that show, then one of the best. So, yeah, I know a couple other ones that are on my list are like Boardwalk Empire season 3.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mad Men season 4. Maybe possibly I'll do a season of the original Star Trek somewhere soon.
Oh yeah.
Just because I've actually I realized this, I've never watched any single piece of Star Trek entertainment.
Oh wow.
Never seen the original show, never seen any of the movies or any of the TV spin-offs or cartoons or anything.
Wow. So wait, have you not seen...
That's surprising.
Have you not seen the Chris Pine movies?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Oh, that kind of blows my mind a little bit. Yeah.
I was a broke college kid when those came out.
Oh,
so,
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, Star Trek, I mean, I am by no means like a diehard lifelong Trekker or anything, but like watching the original series, I watched it maybe 5-6 years ago. And like, it was a really interesting experience because it was just like, this is like premium. Like there's a reason why it's birthed like, so like it has such a long-standing thing, because that original series is near perfect in terms of, you know, science fiction and social commentary and everything. It's amazing. I absolutely adore it. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, like I said, if anyone has any future suggestions, let me know.
Nice.
Any plans to look into Hannah Montana at all, or?
Yeah, you can do a guest column for that.
Maybe I will.
Nice.
Yeah, and then also weekly poll questions as always.
Yes.
This week's is what's your favorite Robert Zemeckis movie? Kind of in honor of the Disney Plus Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have either of you watched Pinocchio, the new one?
Yep.
Okay, you have
No.
been. Okay.
Nope.
I haven't. Ben, is it as bad as people are saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just incredible to me that these Disney live action remakes or whatever are just fail to justify their own existence anymore.
Ugh.
It's like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. And
what are we doing here?
And they've announced plenty of like there's no slowing it or anything.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to like tweet this or whatever, but I didn't get around to it. But they announced at D23 that that The Lion King is going to have a prequel that's Mufasa, The Lion King. And like, I don't know, in my head, I was like, it would be kind of funny if like the prequel is just Mufasa like being prince for like 70 years until his mom dies and then he finally gets to become king. Yeah. So
I don't know who asked for that. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Cash grab.
Yep. Yeah.
That's all you can say, pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I haven't even.
Pinocchio is not good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was Robert Zemeckis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you guys watch Welcome to Marwen?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated it so much. It was, good God. Yeah.
Did you guys also know he did a HBO Max movie last year?
Robert Zemeckis?
Yeah. It was a remake of The Witches with Anne Hathaway.
No shit.
No. What?
Yeah. It was. Do you guys remember that movie The Witches from when we were kids? I forget who was in it originally. Maybe like Angelica Houston, where there was a kid who discovers that this hotel or whatever that she's staying at is run by witches, and they're creepy and weird.
I'm looking it up now. I have no memory of this.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it barely happened. So.
Wow.
It was bad.
From 1990.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Huh.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking now. I maybe saw this. Angelica Houston's ringing some bells.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't know. I maybe saw this.
Huh. Yeah, I had no idea that he did that. Huh.
Yeah.
Funny anecdote about Robert Zemeckis or about Pinocchio is one of my favorite Letterboxd reviews. I think this is like the most popular Letterboxd review for Pinocchio. It's 1.5 stars, and all it says is the second film of the year where Tom Hanks plays a European caricature alongside an exploited puppet.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really clever. Yeah. So yeah, and I still haven't seen Elvis. I'm gonna have to catch up on all of this stuff in the coming months.
I'm guessing that your guys' favorite Zemeckis movie is Back to the Future.
Yeah, without question for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to say Forrest Gump.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say Forrest Gump or Back to the Future. Yeah.
Yeah. No votes have been nobody has voted for either of those movies yet, so feel free to cast your vote at themoviestate.com.
I will definitely be casting away my vote.
One that I will definitely stick up for is it's like the second movie that he made, but Used Cars is fantastic. It's
interesting.
It's this really funny Kurt Russell vehicle, and it's so silly and weird, and it's really funny. It's like on Pluto TV or something, but highly recommend that one.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. I just voted for Back to the Future. And
okay.
Yeah.
I voted for Forrest Gump.
Nice. Have you guys watched Forrest Gump in recent years? Does it hold up? Because I haven't seen it since a very long time.
Been a while for me. I don't know. I can't even remember.
Yeah. I haven't watched it like all the way through, but I've probably caught snippets of it here and there.
Okay.
I read the sequel, the book that was supposed to be the basis for the movie's sequel.
Oh, okay.
Earlier this year. It's awful.
Oh, wow.
It's so bad.
Jeez. That's wild.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah. The guy cranked it out after the movie came out in like 6 weeks or something.
Good God. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, do you guys want to dive into our Ebert's Great Movies list section here?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so yeah, once again, check out themoviestate.com. Also, you can follow Ben on Twitter at themoviestate and on Letterboxd at Ben Sears. And then Tiny is, of course, on Letterboxd at Obsessive Tiny. And I think do you ever browse Twitter, Tiny?
Every once in a while.
Yeah, so give him a follow.
Not that often.
At Obsessive Tiny. So, yeah.
Oh, it's the best. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, yeah. I'm glad that you've warmed up to it.
There's nothing negative to say about Twitter.
Yes.
We're the people that run it.
Yes. Also follow us on Truth Social. That is a joke.
Matt, you're running that page, right?
No, God, no. Okay, well, yeah, let's get into our Ebert's Great Movies List series. You can find the archive page on the website specifically for this review series at obsessiveviewer.com/Ebert series. And I'm going to go ahead and play the stinger for our Ebert's Great Movies List review series, and then we'll get into it.
No name is more synonymous with film criticism than Roger Ebert's.
Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and children.
People say, do film critics have too much power?
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair.
We can help a movie. We can help a movie by sharing our enthusiasm. We can't necessarily hurt a movie that is destined to be a big hit anyway.
You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure.
And then Roger Ebert gets up.
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people?
Let us all unite!
So, of course, the concept for this review series is that we each select a single movie from Roger Ebert's Great Movies list, which is comprised of over 300 movie titles, and we review and discuss them in a special series of podcast episodes, and I spent a lot of time setting up the new equipment with the audio and everything. Did not realize it was that faint, so I'm sorry for the low volume. I'm going to probably fix that in post. But anyway, the quote that's attributed to Roger Ebert is, "One of the gifts a movie lover can give another is the title of a wonderful film they have not yet discovered. Here are more than 300 reconsiderations and appreciations of movies from the distant past to the recent past, all of movies that I consider worthy of being called great." And as this is the 15th installment of this, you guys should all know that, what we do here. This time we're going to be covering, in chronological order by release date, the movies M, The Color Purple, and Magnolia. So, did you guys have any thoughts on the... I do have something to say before we get into our review of M. Today, did you guys hear about this? That Ebert's Great Movies list alum, Jean-Luc Godard, died today. Because he...
Yes, I did.
Yes, he directed Cleo from 5 to 7.
How dare you?
Did I?
No.
No?
That was Agnes Varda.
Oh, god damn it, yes. Shit. Yeah, okay. Dang it, I was gonna double check that. Did he have anything to do with that?
I mean, he was also French.
He was an actor in that. Okay. God damn it. I was I'm so sorry. But yeah, we have not covered any of his movies in it. I had a whole thing. I am very close to just redoing that whole section.
I'm quitting this podcast.
I know. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it here. I'm so sorry. With respect to Agnes Varda, Jean-Luc Godard passed away today, and he has multiple movies on the Ebert's list. Am I correct in that, or am I going to put my foot even further in my mouth?
There's at least 2.
Mm-hmm. There's Breathless and is
Vive sa vie, I think is what it's called.
Okay. And
there might be 1 or 2 other ones, but I don't know for sure. I was looking earlier today.
Okay. Wow. Well, I am very breathless with my embarrassment. But Ben, have you watched any of Jean-Luc Godard's movies?
I have only seen Breathless.
Okay. Tiny, how about you?
I'm not familiar with him at all.
Okay. And Ben, what were you going to say? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, coincidentally, the Agnes Varda connection, she did a documentary very late in her life where she went to go and visit him.
Oh, wow.
And they were going to, talk, and because I don't think they had really spoken all that much. And there's a moment where she goes to his house and he leaves up a note on his front door, and I forget exactly what it says, but it was kind of a dick thing, whatever it said. And she was very distraught and called him a dirty rat and was not too happy about it. So he was kind of famously a dick, kind of famously I don't know if I want to say provocative, but just, made some interesting statements every once in a while.
Okay. Interesting.
So,
yeah. Well, have I lost all credibility?
To make up for it, you can go and see Breathless at the Can this week.
That's true. It is playing at the Can this week. It's playing until the 15th, I think. So I think this is going to come out after that. But hopefully you guys got a chance to see it. Yeah. Yeah,
I've seen Breathless once. I think I saw it last year.
Okay.
It's maybe I should save my thoughts. I don't think I'm gonna pick it for next time. But
okay.
It's interesting.
Okay.
I'll pick it sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's worth a discussion for sure.
Okay, nice. If I didn't already have my pick picked out, I would have probably picked something along those lines. But yeah. So anyway, rest in peace to Agnes Varda, and she's not alive, is she?
She passed away in 2019.
Okay. Well, rest in peace to both of those filmmakers. Yeah. Okay, should we get into the first movie of the night?
Yep.
Okay,
sure.
Nice. All right, well, we are going to be covering first off M from 1931 by Fritz Lang. As is normally the case and is customary, we're going to be doing a non-spoiler review followed by a spoiler review, which I will separate with a clip from the trailer. And Ben, this was your pick for this edition. Can you kind of introduce the movie to us and tell us what compelled you to choose it for this edition of the Ebert's Great Movies List series?
Yeah, so M, directed by Fritz Lang, came out in 1931. Plot description: when the police in a German city are unable to catch a child murderer, other criminals join in the manhunt. I mostly just picked this. I don't know why, but I've always been kind of curious about this movie, at least for a while. And it gave me an excuse to buy the Criterion Blu-ray during the last Barnes & Noble sale. So that was mostly
nice.
it. I didn't really know anything about it going into it. So I don't know why. Like I said, I've just kind of been drawn to it and just been curious about it.
Nice. And have you watched any of Fritz Lang's other movies? Or is this your first one?
So it turns out I have watched one of his called You Only Live Once.
Okay.
But like I was looking that up, and I apparently watched it like in the early days of the pandemic, and I remember nothing about it. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this was my first real Fritz Lang movie, I guess. So
nice.
This was really cool. I'm excited to talk about it.
Sweet. Yeah. Tiny, do you have any history with Fritz Lang or M? And yeah, what was your experience? Do you have any history with it? And then we can circle back around to Ben to talk about it.
I have no history with M. I wasn't too familiar with it. I don't have any Fritz Lang experience either, but I've always wanted to see Metropolis just because it's an early movie and it's supposed to be visually pretty impressive. So I've always wanted to see that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any experience with the movie or the director.
Yeah, same here. Even down to the Metropolis thing. I've always wanted to see Metropolis, but just never got around to it. And I will say, after seeing M, I'm very interested in seeing Metropolis and more Fritz Lang stuff. But yeah. So Ben, how did you feel about M?
I was blown away. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if this was going to be a silent movie, because I mean, this came out the same year as Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, so I figured could very plausibly be a silent movie. I didn't know if it would be in English or German or what. But yeah, I was blown away. I really liked we'll get into it, but I just was really impressed by the clear influences that this movie has had on just an entire genre, maybe multiple genres of movies over the past almost 100 years. So that was really incredible to me. And not to mention the story I thought was really interesting, and the way it played out was really cool too. Yeah,
I agree completely. I was blown away by this as well. And it's interesting that I think, and I mean, my foot's already in my mouth anyway, but it's interesting that you picked this movie, and then in the early days of this review series, you picked The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is also a German movie. And it's interesting because both movies are obviously very, very influential in their own ways, but it's really interesting to see an early 20th century German movie that's not like an expressionist movie or anything. It's more straightforward, but it is absolutely like, it contains so many hallmarks that we've come to know and we know of in like the psychological thriller, the detective story kind of thing. And it's just, what really stood out to me is like clearly like the restoration that went into it. I didn't get to see it on Blu-ray or anything, but I did watch it on HBO Max, which they have the Criterion edition of it. So it's definitely been restored and touched up and everything. And it is stunning to me. And it's an interesting kind of companion to an extent to like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because it has like this very geometric kind of thing with the aspect ratio being pretty tight, and then having like the framing of and the composition of certain sequences just looks so geometrically appealing, if that makes sense. Like the scene where one of the criminals is running down the steps and going through like several flights of stairs, and it's just this big wide open thing, but it's a tight shot. It looks just stunning to me, and it looks really good, and it really makes me interested to see more of Fritz Lang's work. Yeah. Tiny, how did you feel about M?
I wasn't as blown away as you guys were. I think I kind of failed to, as a viewer, to contextualize the movie. It felt a little bit like an early procedural, I guess, because so much of the dialogue is mired down in the police and the public and the criminals all talking about how they're going to catch this guy. And it was a little drab for me. I'd say that's half the dialogue easily. It's just like, okay, how are we going to catch this guy? And it's not particularly interesting. It's a lot of back and forth. And so that kind of dragged it down for me a little bit. But I think that's the lack of contextualization on my part. Like, this was made in 1931. I think I read this is the first time that Fritz Lang used recorded dialogue for a movie, which is impressive. And I'm not 100% sure on the historical place of 1930, 1931 when they were making this, but I believe the Nazi Party was on the rise. And Peter Lorre is Jewish, I believe. Fritz Lang is half Jewish. They both fled Germany. I know I read that later on. But I'm sure there were a lot of Jewish Germans involved with this movie. And the movie was banned in Germany and all that stuff by the Nazis, and it wasn't viewed until the mid-'60s, I want to say. So there's a lot of really interesting history. It's kind of miraculous that the movie even survived till today. So all those things working against this movie makes it pretty miraculous and a really incredible piece of art. You know, it's like something making it through a war, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just some of that dialogue was a little dreary for me. But I mean, the ending is just super good. And Peter Lorre is, I've been a fan of his for a long time. He was in kind of a silly, I don't know if silly is the right word, but a live action Disney movie in the 50s with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And for whatever reason, me and my brother loved that movie, and we used to watch it all the time. It's not very good. I think I watched it like 15 years ago. And I was like, God, this kind of sucks. Kirk Douglas is the lead in it. It's just a goofy ass movie, but yeah. So I knew who Peter Lorre was since I was a kid. And you know, he's Maltese Falcon and several other performances. But I mean, this is like one of his first movies, and he's just amazing. He has such a good physical presence on screen. He's known for his physical, you know, his appearance and all that, but he obviously has some acting chops, which he was on full display in this movie. So yeah, there's a lot of good things about it, but I think I just kind of, some of it just kind of was lost on me when I viewed it, maybe, if that makes sense. So
interesting. That's really interesting, because the procedural aspect of it is something that I was particularly taken with. I found it to be really engaging, specifically because it is that kind of duality of the police investigation and the criminal underworld kind of taking it into their own hands. And the way that those machinations kind of work separate from one another is really interesting to me. Granted, it's not necessarily as well developed as I probably would have liked it to be in terms of a duality of conflict, or a duality of investigation even, but I was pretty engaged by all of it. And when it gets to the ending, like, I agree, Peter Lorre is absolutely astounding in this. Like, I think he is fantastic. And I think that goes a very long way. And I don't know, Ben, are you going to bring up any of the trivia? Because I have one in the chamber for Tiny. But if you were going to talk about the husband and wife thing with Fritz Lang.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting, Tiny, that you said about Nazism and the Nazis were on the rise and everything. I think the Nazi Party took power like 2 years after this movie, maybe, or yeah. Okay. And in the process of making it, like, this was the last, from what I read, this was the last collaboration between Fritz Lang and his wife, Thea von Harbo, who co-wrote the script with him. And he basically, what happened was she became a member of the Nazi Party. and like that rift just was irreconcilable. Oh, I think she also cheated on him. And they divorced during the production, and they never worked together again. But that's what I understood from my scant reading on IMDb.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Maybe anti-Semitism was on the rise or something like that. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
They weren't in power, but they were definitely around.
Right.
Yeah.
They were storming the Capitol building and starting their own social media platform and everything.
Yeah, I thought that I had known that Fritz Lang eventually moved to the U.S., and I wasn't sure before he started this if this was before or after he had moved here. And I find it really fascinating, the context, like we were saying, the Nazi context, because there's a way to read this where he is like openly critiquing the Nazis, and just like the mob mentality of like early on when they have no clues and they're basically just putting police out there 24/7 on every street corner. And everyone who does anything even remotely suspicious is just like thrown in jail.
Yeah. And
that is just fascinating to me that made it into the final portion of the movie, because there is that social context that is just fascinating.
Yeah, that's true. And like being forced to show your papers and everything. Yeah, that's a really interesting angle. Ew.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the mob mentality as well. That was really fascinating. I liked that. I wondered if that was a subtle nod to something, to German politics at the time. But yeah, just the we're not in spoilers yet. That's why I didn't bring it up yet, because there's an interesting mob mentality point at the end of the movie. But yeah, I just the authoritarianism and the mob mentality is fascinating. There's a really good scene early on where there's a guy just talking to a child on the street, maybe trying to help her. I can't remember exactly, but some big dude comes up and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then they just like, I think they take him to the cops and he gets arrested. And I was like, "Geez, this is not good."
Yeah, there's just one really simple, just quick moment where the police are just there's like a line of them just walking down the street, and just seeing that and knowing what was to come was just chilling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Jesus.
There's a line that I love in Roger Ebert's essay, if it'll load here. Let's see. Elsewhere in the film, an innocent old man suspected of being the killer is attacked by a mob that forms on the spot. Each of the mob members was presumably capable of telling right from wrong and controlling his actions, as Becker was not, and yet as a mob they moved with the same compulsion to kill. There is a message there somewhere, not somewhere really, but right up front, where it's a wonder it escaped the attention of the Nazi censors.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Jesus.
But I think one other thing that just really blew me away kind of early on, I think you were talking about it a little bit, Matt, where there's a long scene that cuts back and forth between the cops and the mobsters as they're like trying to formulate a plan. And I thought that was really fascinating, because that is such a trope these days of like the cops and the gangsters basically being two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And just the understated way that Fritz Lang put that together in this was just incredible to me.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. And to the extent that I kind of wish that there was more of that in the movie. Because it does seem to lean a little bit more on the police aspect of it until the criminals kind of take over and everything. But overall, like, I thought it was spectacular. It was spectacular. Do you guys want to kind of talk about spoilers, or is there anything else we can talk about in non-spoiler?
I'm ready to go to spoilers if you guys are.
Okay.
Just real quick, I loved some of the camera movements in this, and just some of the technical aspects. I really want to know how they did this, because there's a really interesting like zoom shot or a crane shot, I guess, where he starts out outside of a window and then he starts to like zoom in inside the window, and you can see the pane of glass like sliding to the side as the camera moves in. But he just continues to move in even more, and it was just really, there was some really incredible camera work in this, especially knowing like the technical limitations of 1931.
Oh, absolutely. And also the fact that this was his first sound picture was amazing. And there are moments where, and I don't know if this was a budgetary restraint or this was an artistic choice, but there are moments where like the entire sound drops out entirely. And like it's almost to the extent of being its own soundtrack in terms of being a vacuum, because the scenes that it drops out on are usually like big, like street level scenes that have like kind of a big scope, or they're chasing him, or the like cornering the guy. There's just a lot of like technical, or there's a level of proficiency that's brought into those moments where the sound is just completely dropped and we're just living in the sight of what's going on. And I found that to be just really, really captivating, even if I couldn't fully comprehend exactly why it was happening that way. I was still just really engrossed by it.
Yeah.
Some of the camera stuff jumped out at me too, especially the one through the window. I was like, oh shit, they just did that. I'll point out some of the lighting, especially during there's a bit of a pursuit scene. Some of the lighting in that is really good too. I love lighting, jumps out so well, I think, in black and white. I think in color it gets sort of lost. I think everything has to be lit when it's color, but in black and white I feel like you can really do some cool stuff with lighting, and that jumped out to me in this movie.
Yeah, there's a really incredible silent moment early on when the little girl is killed. And it's just a montage of just different images, and one is like a balloon floating up into some electrical wires. I thought that was really fascinating. So,
absolutely.
I really liked those silent moments. Yeah,
me too. But let's go ahead and talk about spoilers for M. I'm going to play a brief clip from the trailer. So here we go. And when we come back, we're going to be spoiling M. If you don't want to be spoiled on M, which by the way is streaming on HBO Max and available on Criterion Blu-ray and probably the Criterion channel as well. But if you don't want to be spoiled, check the show notes for timestamps. The show notes can be found in your podcast app or at obsessiveviewer.com/OV381. So here's a clip from the trailer for M, and then when we come back, we're going to be spoiling the movie.
Verdirbt uns das Geschäft und begibt die Maßnahmen der Polizei, die täglichen planmäßigen Razzien zur Ergreifung des Kindermörders, hindern unsere Tätigkeit in einem kaum mehr ertragbaren Maße. Wir müssen ihn fangen. Wir selber.
So the first thing I want to bring up in spoilers, just real quick, is that this movie was one of my personal, like, weirdly favorite, like, not subgenres, but like it's in a class of movie that I kind of like when it pops up, but it's the surprise courtroom drama in a particular sense. But in spoilers, what did you guys think of M? Ben, if you want to get us kicked off, since this was your pick.
Yeah, I loved it. Again, you can see the influences from the end of this movie and just so many other movies in the past 90 something years. And really it's not even really a spoiler to discover that Peter Lorre's the killer, because he very clearly outlines it early on. In every time you see Peter Lorre, it's just so heavily implied that he's the killer. So always love, I think it would have been interesting if he would have withheld that, but I think it's generally more interesting when he reveals it, because it's not really about who the killer is overall. It's about what he's doing to the society.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiny, how did you feel about it in spoilers?
I think another thing that I would say is a bit of a detriment to the movie is that it's the characterization was a bit lacking to me.
Okay.
I feel like obviously Peter Lorre as Hans Beckert had some great characterization, of course. And then the Inspector Lohman character kind of had some characterization as well, but I feel like everybody else was mostly just regurgitating lines, and didn't have a lot of personality, frankly. But I mean, it wasn't a big deal. Again, I think that sort of played into the procedural part of it. But yeah, definitely like the movie, and I think I need to kind of see it again, maybe in a different mindset. But yeah, I mean, I respect the hell out of it for 1931 in a, especially in a, I don't know the state of German cinema in the 1930s, but you know, I can't imagine it was anywhere. It didn't have anywhere near the enthusiasm that somewhere like Hollywood did. You know, it was probably very hard to get a film made in general, and so to have the resources to get it made was probably an achievement all on its own. But yeah, I definitely like the movie for sure. It's a really interesting the kind of mock court trial at the end was my favorite part, and I thought that was very kind of terrifying. Like I mean, just to be thrown into that situation as Hans Beckert, Peter Lorre's character, like that's just such a thing to face. You know, it's just really. He probably just was not expecting that at all, you know. And I kind of thought with the criminals catching him, I was thinking, you know, this is just going to be like an execution and just, you know, it's going to be pretty straightforward. But that was really surprising, and I kind of loved it. Like that was a brilliant stroke for the movie.
Yeah, that was probably the most interesting aspect of the movie for me, specifically the. Like in that moment, I don't know how much of this is me maybe not paying close enough attention to the movie or me being very much in the mindset of the nearly 100 years of influence this has had on police procedurals and psychological thrillers and everything. But in that moment, when he is like facing his court, facing like that mass array of people, I kept thinking like, am I supposed to know that he's the killer? Like, is there anything in this that is going to make me think that like, oh no, he's not actually the killer. This is all like a cautionary tale about mob mentality. But what I found really interesting is that he is the killer. He is like the kind of conflict in that, the kind of moment that I found really, really, captivating is the fact that it's presenting us with this man who has done the most reprehensible thing multiple times, murdering children. And then in the moment when he is facing justice, even if it's a mob justice, like it's kind of creating this not necessarily like explanation, but this thing that's like, yeah, it's a compulsion. Like I can't not do it. So can I go home? Like that kind of thing. And it's like, it's a weird thing because in the moment, like in my head, I'm like, yeah, he needs to be removed from everywhere because he killed kids. But like, it's just, it's a really interesting kind of humanistic side to it, I think. That kind of shows a little bit, it really shows a lot of the complexity of, you know, the idea of criminal justice and facing judgment and everything for horrendous things. So I don't know.
Yeah. Did you guys also read the trivia that the courtroom scene was comprised of 24 actual criminals?
I did read that.
24 people were arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To what you were saying, Tiny, about not really connecting with any of the characters, I can kind of understand that. But also, I don't think the characters are really the point of the movie. You know, like I don't think I could name a single character other than Beckert, and I'm okay with that because I think the idea is more what those characters represent. You know, what they do to the people around them and how they affect change and how they are going to right this injustice.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't necessarily need characterization. But my issue with it was just, just from a organizational level, like I couldn't remember, okay, is this guy a cop or is this guy one of the criminals? Or is this guy that, like, as kind of which I guess speaks to the nature of policing in Germany in the 1930s. But You're not wrong. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I wanted to talk about the whole part, the mock trial where Hans Becker basically breaks down. That was the part of mob mentality that blew me away in the movie. We were talking about that earlier on. There was like a bunch of different people spouting off different ways to say kill him. It was kind of funny. I was like, how many different ways is there to say kill this person? But then he has this really emotional breakdown, and it's very shattering and shocking, and it evoked empathy in me. And then it's supposed to be this very earth-shattering moment in the movie, and then somebody just yells out like, that's bullshit, kill him, basically. And then everyone just gangs up. They're like, no, we just want to kill him. I was like, wow, that's really messed up, because it was such a powerful soliloquy or speech or whatever you want to call it. Then when he has that breakdown, it was really incredible. One of the most incredible parts of the movie. And it's just almost instantly written off. That was really powerful and a shocking part of the movie. I really kind of love that.
Yeah, me too. That whole sequence is it's kind of astounding to me just how good it is. Like you said, Tony, that empathy that's created in it it's just really it's really spectacular.
Yeah, and Peter Lorre just crushes it. That's like one of the only lines of dialogue he has in the movie.
That's right.
So
yeah.
And
it's kind of seeded really well with the scene where I think it's where he's being tempted, or he's about to kidnap a girl, and then he goes to like a little cafe and orders, I think, cognac. And he's humming, and he's kind of beating himself in the head a little bit. And that's just kind of communicating that he's trying to get the demons out and everything, and trying not to, like, he's at least semi-conscious of the evil that is within him, or even if he kind of later on dismisses it as like, oh yeah, I black out, I don't know what I'm doing. He still has like that level of cognitive kind of thoughts to know that he's on the cusp of doing something horrendous.
Yeah, that's another really fascinating point to it, because correct me if I'm wrong, but does someone at one point mention Freud in this, or am I thinking of something else that I watched?
Oh, I don't think I didn't catch any references to Freud, but it's possible that it just completely that I missed it.
Yeah, I don't remember that specifically. No.
Okay. Yeah. But maybe I'm thinking of something else that I watched recently.
I did read in trivia though that Peter Lorre, he grew up in Austria in the late 1890s or something like that, and he was actually a student of Sigmund Freud.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I was like, that's an interesting connection.
Yeah. Huh. Nice. Yeah. So any other thoughts on M? What else do we have for it?
I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the visuals, but I think the visual of the guy with the M written on his hand is just iconic.
Yes.
It's an incredible visual moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was very much delighted by that, and that moment when he does that and he puts the hand mark on him and everything, like that's really cool, and I'm like, oh, I get it. That's neat. I now have context for like the image of him looking in the mirror, or looking in the reflection and seeing it. But then when there was that moment where I just had like this deep dread where it's the girl who says like, oh, you have a mark on your jacket, here, let me get it off for you and everything. And I was just like, it was just wild to me to think that like how unsuspecting it is, because this is like she has no idea that this is literally the thing that could and would save her life, but she's just like, oh, I'm being friendly to this nice stranger who gave me candy and everything, and I'm gonna get this off of his back. It's just I don't know. There was something to that just felt really just really tense in a very subtle way.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah. The actual closing scene where they're showing the judges coming into a courtroom, and then the mother of, I think, Elsie Beckman, who was one of the victims, she has I guess it's probably the most famous line in the movie, where she says this something along the lines of, "This won't bring our children back," or something like that.
Yeah. And then she says something like, "Please guard your children," or keep like a warning to.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a little it felt a little clumsy, I guess. I don't know if we needed more of that or none of it. I'm not really sure what would be better. Maybe just showing him being sentenced would have given that a little more context, or a little, I don't know. It just that was just an odd tacked on ending, I think. I thought that was just kind of, how did you guys feel about it?
Ben?
Sorry, that moment isn't exactly fresh in my mind at the moment. So, pass.
I thought it was effective. I thought it's very direct, and it's almost fourth wall breaking. It's damn near fourth wall breaking. It is fourth wall breaking. And I thought it was fine. I do agree it was a little bit direct, but it's an interesting button on the movie as a whole. I think that it kind of creates this kind of overarching kind of idea, but you're right, there isn't enough of that, any of that really in the movie to kind of justify its presence at the end, but I was still kind of I was fine with it.
Okay. I do like the lines that she says. Those are good, but it just felt a little clumsy, I guess.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, should we wrap up and give our ratings and whether or not it would be on our great movies list?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
All right, great. So Ben, since this was your pick, we're going to save you for last, I guess. And I'll go first, and I'll say that I rated this on Letterboxd 4.5 stars. Just because the technical aspects of it and the procedural aspect of it also, I was really taken with, and just some of the, like the framing, the care with which the camera just captured every like set piece, if you want to call them that. It was really out of this world, amazing, especially for a movie from 1931. So I rated 4.5 stars, gave it a thumbs up, and it would make my great movies list, because I could see myself revisiting it again at some point and really finding even more in it. So nice. Yeah. Tiny, how about you?
Thumbs up for sure. I gave it 3.5 stars. I'd probably bump that to 4, having sat with it a little bit and kind of talked it over with you guys. I would put it on the greatest movies list, but I think I was thinking about what I would replace it with, and just for fun, I know it's not on the list, so it made me think of Mystic River a lot.
Oh, interesting.
It's another really good movie. If you've never seen that, check that out. There's some crossover threads between these two movies, so yeah. But I would put it on the list though. I wouldn't replace it.
Nice. Okay.
Cool.
And Ben, would you mind rounding us out for this section with your rating and great movies ranking?
Yeah, definitely thumbs up. I gave it 5 stars.
Nice.
And yeah, 100% would go on my great movies list. I think there is a direct line from this movie to movies like, French Connection and Silence of the Lambs and Seven and The Departed and just 100 other movies that are in some cases just not as good as this. So yeah, definitely.
Nice. That's great. Sweet. So that is our review of M, 1931, Fritz Lang, again available on HBO Max and Criterion. So now we are going to go on to Tiny's pick from the previous episode. So Tiny, you chose for us to watch and review Steven Spielberg's 1985 adaptation of Alice Walker's novel The Color Purple. Tiny, would you mind introducing us to the movie and letting us know why you picked it and your history with it, if any?
Absolutely. The IMDb synopsis says, a Black Southern woman struggles to find her identity after suffering abuse from her father and others over 4 decades. So this was directed by Steven Spielberg, based on Alice Walker's novel, like Matt said, written by Menno Meyjes, I believe is how you pronounce that. And it came out in 1985. This was Whoopi Goldberg's first movie, I want to say. I really just picked it because I've never seen it. That's usually kind of my main reason for picking almost everything in this project. Is just there's so much good stuff on the list I've never seen that I want to just pick stuff I haven't seen because I need to force myself to watch these kind of movies. Because I don't find myself gravitating towards them. And yeah, I've heard people talk about this movie before, and I was out of the loop, so I really just wanted to see it. I don't really have any other reason than that.
Nice. Ben, what's your history with The Color Purple? And yeah,
the same. I had never seen it either. This was one of my Spielberg blind spots. So, I didn't really know anything about it either. Just that it was a well-regarded Spielberg movie and a well-regarded Oscar movie. So, outside of that, no experience.
Nice. That's so interesting because I have a limited experience with it. I'd seen it before. I saw it. When was that? Probably, within the last 5 years, I would say. It was, I do remember like way back in the day, in the early days of maybe not even the podcast, just the website, obsessiveviewer.com, by the way, that I remember like someone commenting and saying like, have you ever reviewed The Color Purple? Because it's like the greatest movie ever and you should watch The Color Purple. And I was like, yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. And then like 6 years later, I finally watched it. So I watched it in January 2018 for the first time. And then that's so interesting. And then I watched it again for this, and yeah, we'll talk about it. Tiny, do you want to get us kicked off with your kind of thoughts, your reaction to The Color Purple?
Absolutely. Right off the bat, one of the things that jumped out to me about the movie is just Whoopi Goldberg's presence in the movie. I kind of grew up on Whoopi Goldberg because the Sister Act movies were like a religion in my house. Like we watched those movies all the time. Nice. Those movies are still to this day fantastic. They hold up really well, really funny. Whoopi, I have a image of Whoopi Goldberg cemented in my mind as a comedic actress. And she got her start in stand-up comedy. And so that's just how I think of her. And so to see her in such a dramatic role with basically no comedy, was really just shook me. Cause I was like, wow, I think she won an Oscar for Ghost, didn't she?
Yeah. From what I understand, I think that was a, kind of like, okay, we messed up and didn't get you one for The Color Purple. Okay. So let's give you one for Ghost.
Gotcha.
At least that's
she's yeah, right. She's great in Ghost, and there's obviously dramatic aspects of that role, but it's a lot of comedy too. And so that's just how I think of her. And so to see her in this context was so jarring for me. And she was terrific. She was so good. And it's her first role, so that just makes it even more incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first thing that jumps to mind. But I definitely liked the movie. I was enthralled by the characters, and I so much sympathy and emotion throughout the movie because it's just horrific what a lot of these characters go through. And I was on board the whole time. I was very curious to see what was going to happen. I will say another interesting thing that jumped out at me is I thought that race relations were going to play a much larger role in the movie.
Yeah.
It obviously it came up and it was the source of some conflict in the story, the movie. But it really wasn't a central feature. I mean, a lot of the conflict and the torment of the movie didn't have anything to do with the fact that it wasn't rooted in racism. It was just kind of evil. Celie's father and her husband were just evil men who held her down throughout her whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it really didn't have anything to do with the fact that they were black. At least maybe there's some subtext there that I didn't pick up on or something. But I just thought that was going to be a much bigger source of conflict.
Yeah.
In the movie, but it really wasn't. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go last. Ben, what did you think of The Color Purple?
Yeah, I think I'm more in line with Tiny. I was impressed by how much I liked it in the moment.
Nice.
I thought there was some really fantastic character dynamics, some really varied characters, and yeah, the performances for sure. Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever seen an Oprah performance, at least not of this caliber, not of this scale. And also Danny Glover, I loved him as well. I don't know if I've ever seen him in like villain mode, and he was really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, my initial thought, like while I was watching it at first, was like, why is Spielberg directing this? And I still kind of we'll get into that a little bit more because I have some thoughts, but you can definitely see some Spielberg touches which help for sure in some regards and not so much in other regards. But I think he's this very much feels like a Spielberg kind of movie.
Yeah, I agree. And in a weird way, I would say it's to the movie's detriment. I don't dislike The Color Purple. I just wasn't crazy about it either time I watched it. I felt like both times I've seen this movie, I feel like Spielberg is, at least I would say, I felt like 1985 Spielberg was the wrong shepherd for this story. And what I mean by that is that he puts, like, the characters by design in the story go through the ringer. And it is brutal, it's harsh, it's very, very upsetting. But I feel like Spielberg, at least in 1985, Spielberg's like hand was a little too much on the sentimentalism that is so endearing in so many other Spielberg movies. And I kind of feel like there's this imbalance in The Color Purple with having like an ultra dramatic and at times upsetting and kind of like characters going through evil presences, basically, mixed with this kind of, like I said, over sentimentalizing it. And I just feel like the movie doesn't quite strike the right balance between those two tones. So I kind of feel like that's my big hang up with the movie. having said that, the performances are just out of this world incredible. Like you guys have both said, I too have never seen Danny Glover be that ruthless and evil and everything. And Whoopi Goldberg is just electric. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I didn't really get much out of it because I felt like it was just kind of teetering between two very, very disparate tones. And I feel like it felt a little bit lacking. And I couldn't really find a road into it.
Yeah, sorry. I left off when talking about the performances. I should also mention Margaret Avery.
Oh, yes.
Was really fantastic as well. I think she's one of the better parts of the movie for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Matt, I can understand. I don't know if we, hindsight, I don't know if Spielberg would have been the best choice to direct this either, because there's no direct reason that I could find for why he ultimately decided to direct this.
Yeah.
I don't think he really had a personal connection to the book, which I guess we should establish. None of us have read the book, have we?
Correct. I haven't. Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, me neither. But from what I understand, there's a moment that I really liked when I watched it. The kind of lesbian subtext between Whoopi Goldberg and Margaret Avery that just kind of is not really is really underplayed here, which I really appreciated. But from what I have read, that storyline is in play a lot more in the book. So Spielberg kind of very consciously tampered that down, and I wonder if another director would have played into it. And I feel like I also read that the book is a lot like darker in terms of like the Whoopi Goldberg characters, Celie's like prospects and hopes for the future.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot darker than what's in the movie. So Spielberg probably lightened that up as well.
Yeah, and to his credit, he did a good job of kind of giving kind of a hopeful sort of thing, or keeping that character's spirits kind of not completely killed. And so you do feel for the character, like when she thinks she's going to go with Shug, and then that doesn't come to pass or anything. Like there are moments that work, but just overall it just didn't really all compute with me.
Sure.
Yeah. To me, I think one of the things that I don't know about jumped out, but kind of didn't take me out of the movie, but like the whole letter writing thing, I just thought was kind of obvious where that was going. I wasn't at all surprised by that or anything. We'll save it for spoilers, but yeah, I just feel like it's amazing that the book was darker, because there's very, very little to no rays of sunshine in this movie. Celie is just in a constant state of torment or just not irrelevancy. She's just not. She's just there. She's a maid, an employee, essentially, or a whipping post for this.
Yeah.
For the Mr. character. She didn't even know his name for years. I mean, that's just horrendous, you know. And all that was pretty potent, but I think was sort of lessened by that tone that Matt was talking about. Like it just there's an odd tone to the movie where I feel like all this darkness wasn't as dark as it should have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because the the Mr. character, Danny Glover's character, is kind of in love with another woman, and maybe that shines through a little bit. Or I'm not. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there was some kind of goofy tonal parts to the movie, I think.
Yeah. There's that weird comic scene where he's like trying to make Suge breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like such a Spielbergian, not trope, but kind of a Spielbergian touch. But given the context of the movie, it just doesn't work for me. And like you said, the tonal shift of it just doesn't really work for me. Yeah. There was something else I was going to say, kind of along those same lines, but I'm blanking on it. But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't quite work for me. It kind of switching gears a little bit, but I thought it was interesting that Quincy Jones did the music for this movie. And it was so weird to me because there are notes in the soundtrack that absolutely feel like precursors to John Williams' his Jurassic Park score. It was so weird to me. Like, I could hear that and I was like, I was just thinking like, oh, this is interesting. And I started thinking like, oh, you know, Spielberg and John Williams, like their collaborations are legendary. And then I was like, wait, hang on. No, he didn't do the music for this. Like what, like it was really interesting. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of that in the trailer clip that I'm going to play. But when we go to spoilers, but I just thought that was interesting. What did you guys think of the music of it?
Incidentally, the music did not jump out to me, which I feel bad because I think this was a pet project of Quincy Jones.
I think he was one of the reasons why Spielberg was brought on.
Oh yeah,
right. I think Quincy Jones basically talked him into it. If I read the trivia right, he was a shepherd for the project, if you will, to kind of use your guys' terms. But yeah, the music just didn't jump out to me for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, no, it didn't really to me either. I'm looking at the credits, and there are 12 people listed as for the score.
Wow.
At least for the Oscars. Because I remember like when the credits were rolling in the beginning, and there was like half the screen was people that had composed the score.
Wow. Yeah. I kind of feel like maybe part of that kind of not necessarily ambiguity with the soundtrack or anything, but kind of the not standing out aspect of it is also, I think, because this is like, you can kind of point to The Color Purple as being like the classic, like Oscar bait kind of movie. So the score is kind of that overly sentimental kind of tones that really play well in a like an Oscar clip kind of setting. So I kind of feel like that maybe is a factor in the lack of memorableness for the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go into spoilers for The Color Purple, or do you guys have anything else that we want to say in non-spoilers?
Yeah, let's go into spoilers.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So as we did with M, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. If you want to skip the spoiler section and go to our review of Magnolia, check the show notes for timestamps. But I will say that if you don't do that and you do listen to the trailer, prepare yourselves for literally the most boring trailer I've ever seen. So here we go, the trailer for The Color Purple, and when we come back, we will be spoiling the movie.
The Color Purple. An American story for the whole world. It's about life. It's about love. It's about us. You will always remember, Mr. Suge. Old Mr. Nettie. Harpo. Squeak. Sophia, and Seeley. You will never forget the color purple.
I can't.
That's horrible.
I know. Wow. It's so like, and what's funny is I had to listen to that several times to get the cues right and everything for the clip, and just like that is just so dull and it says nothing.
Well, and it's like it sounds like a fucking Disney trailer. Like,
it does.
Is that some fun peppy movie? Like, what are you talking? This is a dark ass horrible movie. Well, horrible things happen in this movie. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My first note is he says it's a story for the whole world. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And more specifically, America and the American South.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And some of that music is, I believe, from the score of the movie, and like again, that kind of like whimsical sort of element to it just feels like it is so in contrast to the actual tone of the story that's being presented that it just kind of takes me out of it. And the kind of beginning notes of the trailer is what I was getting at, with it sounding kind of like a precursor to Jurassic Park. I'm going to play just the beginning of it if you guys can hear it. So hang on one second.
The color purple. An American
like
story
right there
for the
when it went
world.
like doo-doo-doo. So I don't know, maybe that was just me projecting or thinking about it too much, but
it doesn't jump out to me, but you may be onto something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't know. So anyway, spoilers on for The Color Purple. What did you guys think in spoilers?
I don't know if this is a spoiler moment, but I really loved the storyline. I think it was about midway through with Oprah Winfrey's character and just what she goes through. That was just devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it plays out, and the culmination of that scene was just really just devastating and really dark.
Yeah.
And that's one of the few scenes of race relations in the movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome and detriment of that, you know. I agree, it was heartbreaking because I loved her character. Gosh, what was her name? Sophia, thank you. Yeah. Sophia was such a fun surge to the movie because she's such a contrast to Seeley, you know. And she's a bit of a role model for Seeley in a way. So I kind of love that. And then just to have her, like Ben was saying, just to have that completely ripped away from her, and that was just earth shattering. And yeah, I agree. It was one of the more somber aspects of the movie. But it was also incredible. So
yeah.
Sorry. Did you guys think at the end of that scene when the white woman is trying to drive away and the black guys are trying to help her, did you guys also think that she would, or there would come back to it and there would be like a lynch mob coming after those guys?
I was kind of wondering that, yeah.
Huh. You know,
I was kind of preparing for something like that to happen, but it didn't.
That's interesting. I didn't think that would be the case. I think that if the movie was, for me, better, but also I kind of feel like if the movie wasn't done in this kind of Oscar bait, sentimental Oscar bait sort of hand, I think that absolutely would have been something that would have fit and been an interesting avenue of just horror even and drama. But with it being Spielberg, 1980 Spielberg, I should say, I wouldn't have expected him to go that far with it. Which, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read that this was his first like non-blockbuster movie. So I think maybe that's part of my disassociation with it, is that it just kind of feels like he's a little bit out of his element in it. Or maybe that's just me searching for a reason to not like a Spielberg movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I did have the same thought, Ben. I was thinking it was kind of a, To Kill a Mockingbird,
right,
Schifferobe type situation where something gets completely blown out of proportion or just flat out lies get told and it ends up in a lynch mob situation. I did have that thought, yeah.
Yeah.
What else in honestly, I don't have much to say in spoilers for this movie because I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse with my criticisms of it. But yeah, what else do we got?
Yeah. Well, for me, the letter writing, I was like, the sister was writing her the whole time. Like that was obvious, and Albert was keeping them hidden from her. Like I thought that was like. I don't know if maybe that's just something that's been in other movies and they stole it from this, or I don't know, but I'm typically not good at, figuring out the twist or finding out stuff like that. But from the get-go, I was like, yeah, she's definitely, he's running out to the mail every time that the mailman comes by. It's obvious that he's, so that wasn't particularly shocking. I did like that she basically savored all those letters, and it feels like she stretched out reading them over months and months and months, and that was kind of satisfying in a way. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And also to kind of talk about the ending denouement of the movie. The reunion scene was just kind of I feel like it was a little over the top. Just the way they scream each other's names was just a tad cringy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, that's a pretty unique situation. So it's hard to say how a person should react in that moment, but it just did not feel genuine to me. It just felt a little cringy to me. So.
Sure. Yeah. I will admit, like I kind of bought into the emotions of that moment at the end, the reunion, and I think that's mostly due to Whoopi Goldberg's performance in that moment. But yeah, it is a little bit too much of a movie style moment or a movie moment.
Yeah,
and yeah, I guess they were probably beholden to the source material, but
yeah. I kind of feel like there wasn't much resolved, or wasn't resolved to my liking, the tension between Mr. and Celia in particular. Like, and I know that Suge prevents her from cutting him when she's shaving him, but he knows that she tried to cut him, right? Do you
probably?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's obvious, but I think you could go either way with it, because you can make the argument that he's he doesn't ever give her an ounce of credit for anything. Yeah, so I don't even know that he could think that she would even realize that she could kill him, because he just thinks she's a moron,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could make an argument either way. Yeah.
Okay. Because I kind of feel like that scene is like it's a pivotal moment. It is a huge moment for her. And I kind of feel like it's just tossed aside a little bit. I don't feel like it's really given the gravitas that it should have had and the fallout that it should have had. Like, sort of not necessarily immediately after that, but soon after that, we get the dinner scene, which is pretty spectacular and interesting, but it also just doesn't, it feels so disconnected from like that scene, which feels like it should have been a response to that scene, or it should have had some kind of bearing on the plot more than it did. And that's something that I just kind of, maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention, but it just didn't feel like it connected or didn't feel like it was flowing as naturally as I would have liked.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that dinner scene, I forget if it's in that scene or if it's in a different moment, but I love the character detail of the Danny Glover character's father, and how he's basically just trying to live up to his father's, expectations. I think the movie doesn't totally need that extra detail, but I love that it's in there.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I agree. That does give some good texture to the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it demonstrates the cycle of abuse. Which stops with Harpo, I guess, is his oldest son. Was that his name? Did I make that up?
No, it was Harpo.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it's nice that it stops with him, I guess, and that's one of the interesting parts of the movie that kind of jumps out is that he doesn't abuse his wife, and he marries an actual a woman with who isn't just a placeholder, really. So the dinner, we didn't really talk about the dinner scene, but it's it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, one of the best parts of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. And it's funny when you asked if you got the name Harpo right, and when I told you that the name Sophia, the only reason I really remember them is because of that freaking trailer.
Nice.
But yeah,
also Oprah backwards.
Oh, yeah, it is. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, I think talking it out a little bit more, I've softened a little bit on the movie, but I still don't. I think it's a lesser Spielberg movie, for me overall. Anything else we want to talk about in spoilers, or should we go to ratings, or I defer to your guys' judgment?
I'm just the last thing. It's not even about the movie necessarily. I think I'm going to read the book.
Oh, nice.
Because I could see this being a shining example of the book being better than the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I am curious to read that as well. Maybe the audiobook. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Maybe I'll pick it up. I have a couple of credits on Audible. It's also worth noting this was nominated for, I think, 11 Oscars, and it got shut out, which is kind of surprising, sort of.
Right.
Yep.
But yeah.
Tied the record for most nominations without a win.
Oh, wow.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
I read that in the trivia.
I don't know if that record still stands or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm ready for ratings if you guys are.
Yeah,
sure.
I am too. So we'll do Tiny last. Ben, do you want to get us kicked off with your rating? Thumbs up or thumbs down? And would it be on your great movies list?
Yeah, I would say thumbs up. I rated it 4 stars. Probably would not be on my great movies list. And my initial thought was to just replace it with a different Spielberg movie. But I think what I would actually replace it with is another movie that also came out in 1985, directed not by Jean-Luc Godard, but by Agnes Varda, called Vagabond, which kind of shares some similarities. It's about a beaten down woman who faces a lot of crisis and throughout her life, and just one of Agnes Varda's best movies. So, yeah,
very nice,
cool,
awesome. For me, I rated this. Ben, did you say you gave it a thumbs down?
No, thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Okay, I'm just making my notes here. I rated it. So it's interesting because in 2018, when I first saw it, I rated it 3.5 stars. And when I saw it this time, I honestly dropped that down to 2.5, which sounds harsh and severe, and maybe it is, but also it's middle. It's like it's literally the middle point of the 5-star scale. I just didn't get the emotional connection that the movie was very much trying to give me. So I gave it 2.5 stars. I would give it a thumbs down, unfortunately, and I would not put it on my great movies list. However, what I would put in its place is I went with this because it's another 1985 movie, not directed by Agnes Varda, but I do have a poster on my wall that I'm staring at right now. Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future, which I'm surprised isn't on the list, so I'm kind of curious to go back and see what Ebert's review of it was, but that's what I would replace The Color Purple with. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Good choice.
Thank you. Tiny, where do you land on The Color Purple?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with a thumbs up.
Nice.
I did enjoy the movie, so I gave it 3.5 stars. Thumbs up, but I don't think I'd put it on my great movies list. I would replace it with a movie that unfortunately Roger Ebert didn't get to see. 12 Years a Slave from 2013.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to think of a movie that was more female centric and also played on the race thing, the Southern thing. This was kind of the best I could do. I think the character of oh my gosh, it's escaping me.
Lupita Nyong'o's character.
Thank you. Yes, Lupita Nyong'o's character fills some of those themes pretty well. So I think that's a fair substitution as a movie. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Cool.
I forgot to mention this earlier, but I kind of wish that we could have paired this movie with Do the Right Thing, because I think there's some interesting parallels. Some handled good, successfully, and some not so much. But yeah, just had that thought while I was watching it.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Totally.
That would have been really interesting if we had done Do the Right Thing, The Color Purple, and M all in one go. Just because Do the Right Thing has kind of that mob kind of thing.
Totally, yeah. That's interesting.
That would have been interesting. Okay, well, that is our review and our ratings for The Color Purple. Now, shall we kind of move on to the third and last movie of the evening?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is my pick. It is 1999's Magnolia. The premise, according to IMDb, is an epic mosaic of interrelated characters in search of love, forgiveness, and meaning in the San Fernando Valley. Written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Tom Cruise, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, Philip Baker Hall, and William H. Macy. It was released, wide release, January 7th, 2000. And it is on the Ebert's Great Movies list. So I'll get us kicked off with my history with the movie and why I picked it. The why of why I picked it is pretty simple. I had recently bought it on Vudu because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I had some Fandango credits live on Vudu on Vudu. So I picked that. And I picked it for that reason. And my history with it is that I have this vivid memory of, I think it was like 2004. It must have been like 2004, 2005. I had rented it on DVD from Family Video. And I remember, like, the movie has such a, like, the interconnectedness of it is so prevalent throughout the movie. Like, it opens with like how different things connect and everything, that when I saw it when I was in high school, like I remember like driving to Family Video to return it and then like coming back, and like there were like two cars that were like flying out of like an apartment complex that I was passing, and like they cut me off and like they ran a red light. It was like they were chasing each other or they were fleeing to a certain place. I don't know what the deal was, but I was like, I wonder what like what series of events led me to be in this moment and intersect with them. So that was Teenage Matt's kind of assessment of Magnolia. Yeah. What is your guys' history with Magnolia? And yeah, Tiny, do we want to get kicked off with you?
Sure. Yeah. I'd seen this movie once before. I remember it pretty well. P.T. Anderson is one of my top 5 favorite movies, filmmakers. I adore him. I think he's so unique. No one else makes movies like him. I love him as a filmmaker, as a writer. I think he's incredible. And I remember thinking the bulk of the movie was really cool, and creative and everything, and I liked it, but the ending took me out of it. And when I saw it, when I was a teenager, I was just like, I don't think I like the movie because of that. So that's kind of my history with it. But I'm really glad you picked it because I had a different reaction this time, and
nice.
And ended up really liking the movie. So yeah, P.T. Anderson's always. I'm always thrilled to talk about P.T. Anderson.
Sweet. Ben, what's your history with Magnolia, and how did it fare this time?
Yeah, this is one of the two PTA movies that I had never seen.
Oh, wow.
I had never seen this and Inherent Vice before you picked it. And I think, yes, just like you, Tiny, PTA is like one of my probably top 5 favorite filmmakers as well. I think he's brilliant. I think he makes just these incredible, just different, varied movies that are just that just stick with you for so long. And I think part of the reason why I had never watched this is that I knew it was 3 hours. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's my history with it.
Nice. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I hadn't rewatched it since that time in like 2004, 2005, because it is 3 hours long. But it's so interesting to me because it is a very quick-paced 3 hours. It's funny because I was a little bit more engaged with the movie this time around. I liked it when I saw it as a teenager, but now I'm in my 30s and like my mid 30s at that, mid to late 30s. But I'm on the wrong side of my mid 30s, and it kind of hits different, as Gen Z says. But no, it's really interesting. Just the human drama of the characters as they're presented, even when they are as like the kind of torture of the characters to an extent, but also the hapless or helplessness of some of them just comes through in like these amazing ways. When it's something as small, although not small by any stretch, but like as on the surface, somewhat insignificant as like a kid having to go to the bathroom, or it's something as big as a grown man who has spent his entire life escaping like his childhood pain and like the pain of his family, confronting his dying father. Like these massive like swaths of character drama are interconnected in so many unique and interesting ways, in a way that feels so effortless, which it's anything but effortless. Like the work that's put into the script and to the film is astonishing. And to your guys' point about PTA being one of your guys' favorite filmmakers, like he's up there with me too. I will say in a very, very facetious, chiding way that like, yeah, no one makes movies like PTA, especially since, Kubrick died in 1999, because PTA clearly riffs on Kubrick so much in all of his movies. Even here, he plays, for Tom Cruise's, big like moment on stage, he plays the music from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh right, yeah.
But I do love it. It's not like there is no part of me that feels like PTA rips off of anyone really, because he is a wholly unique filmmaker. He has his very clear influences, but he very clearly tells the stories that he wants to tell in very vivid and memorable ways. And I really, really liked this. And it just, again, it's a movie where it pains me that like we lost Philip Seymour Hoffman, because he was astounding in it. Like all the performances are incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think PTA does two things that I think really set him apart, aside from, the directing and the writing. But he is so great at getting these incredible performances out of his actors. Like everyone here, Tom Cruise, this might be like his best performance. I'll have to check the tape, but here, and then Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love. Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix in The Master. Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I mean, Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights. Just almost every movie you can just point to someone just giving their career best work. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman and Licorice Pizza. But also, I think he is like one of our best filmmakers, at least working today, if not all time, and just the ways that he uses music. I think he's as good as like Quentin Tarantino and Scorsese, and in terms of the music that they use and their choices and when they choose to use them. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
And it's fully, all of that is fully on display in this.
Oh, yeah. 100%. It's this is so hacky to say, but it was a very quick 3 hours. Like, it's a world that you just want to live in, as tormented as a lot of the characters are, if not all of them. It's just, it is laid out so pristinely that it's really a work of art. I really loved it.
Definitely. I feel like PTA is I've described him as channeling Stanley Kubrick. That's how I describe him. I feel like really one of the only similarities is really their visual style. Specifically the wide shot. I think PTA took up that mantle, but I feel like as far as character development, story development, writing, he's just night and day with Stanley Kubrick. I think he's way different. It's an obvious comparison to make, because they both operated in a visual medium, but and they're so similar visually. But I think really for me the comparison stops there with the visuals. And it's funny, Ben, you mentioned music. I think I remember when I watched this for the first time as a teenager, one thing that took me out of the movie that I really didn't like was the music. And it's not because the music was bad. It's the way it was used. I feel, and it still bothers me. I still don't like it. It doesn't take me out of the movie, but I took like a whole half star off of my review for my rating for it. Is it crescendos, and it has this build up to it, and it ends up not building up to a climax. It just kind of stops sometimes, and it's just like it just doesn't feel right to me, and I don't like. And it does. I think they do that at least twice in the movie, if not 3 times. And it just bothers me. I still don't care for it. It did not bother me as much this watch through. But I still think it's an odd choice. And it's so long. It's 3 hours that I can understand.
Yeah. Kind
of maybe ebbs and flows, or kind of a roller coaster nature to the music, but it just felt like a bit of a miscue to me, the way they kind of crescendoed the music a couple times. I wasn't crazy about it.
That's interesting to kind of clarify, not necessarily clarify my point, but to your point about the comparison to Kubrick and everything, I do definitely agree with you. I would amend my snarky comment to say that I feel like PTA is a filmmaker who, while he does tend to occasionally, if not emulate, then just pay light homage to Kubrick's visual style and palette and everything. While doing that, he is also someone who has proven himself time and time again to be worthy of using that homage and doing that kind of thing, because he is out of this world with his storytelling and everything.
That's well said. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I'll say, to roll back my comment, without Stanley Kubrick, we don't have PTA.
Right.
Like, that's full stop. You know, that's an obvious statement. So,
and a lot of other filmmakers.
Yeah,
a lot of others too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never knew that there was a comparison between those two, but for me, what I love about PTA's directing style is his use of long takes in pretty much every movie, and there's several of them in this, and they're all just really captivating, and they're not even necessarily really showy long takes, but they really just help you to stay in the moment, and it's really incredible the way that he uses it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just like that, I won't say it's a sense of community by any stretch, but just, it's so interesting how we can have such a unique blend of characters and unique blend of scenarios that they're all encountering, yet PTA does such an incredible job of blending it all together into this, just not even melting pot really, but just in this like putting it all together in this complete panoramic view of this like piece of like a city that has these inhabitants that are all going through very different things and differing levels of existential crises and everything. And it fits together so well. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, I think one of the risks you run with these kind of like anthology style movies is being a little too cutesy with how each of the stories connects with each other.
Yeah.
Like, I think the worst example is like Crash.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other ones, but yeah, I was really curious going into this, just how each of these stories would connect. And I love the theme of all of them, and how he does it. You don't really realize it at first, but once you do, it's really masterful writing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Definitely. One thing that stuck out to me more with this viewing is the kind of prologue at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about the hanging, and then the guy who tries to commit suicide and gets killed on the way down in his fall, and
by his own parents.
Right. I think there's a third one too. I can't remember. It's escaping me at the moment. But that's just, it was so clever because it really sets the tone for the movie. Because some remarkable things, dare I say, unbelievable things happen in the movie. And that prologue really helps set that tone and alleviate the unbelievability of the other things that happen in the movie. And that really elevated the movie for me on this watch through, because some of the stuff that happens in the movie, my previous opinion of it was a little lessened because of some of the disbelievability of some of the things that happen in the movie later on, which we'll talk about in spoilers. But that prologue really mitigates a lot of that for me, and I had completely forgotten about it. I think the last time I watched this was like almost 20 years ago. I was just really pleased with that, because I was operating with that thought and that opinion in my head, and right off the bat, a lot of that was alleviated because of that prologue, and I was just so happy to see it in the movie, and I thought it worked so well in the context of the whole movie. It was really great. So
Yeah, it's a really great primer for the experience that we have in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and then right after that prologue, he just like goes, just hits the ground running. I feel like there's like 1,000 cuts in the first like 10 minutes, and it's really hard with a movie like this to, almost forget who someone is or where they fit in or what they're doing or what the stakes of their storyline is. But I had kept track of everything really easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some pivotal moments that we'll talk about in spoilers, but the moments of characters, the moments in which characters reach like their emotional breaking points are some of the most interesting and kind of wonderful examples of acting I've seen in almost anything I've really seen. Like you said, Ben, I think the performances that PTA gets out of his actors is, historically speaking, incredible, and it's no different here. It's just astonishing. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys want to move to spoilers so we can kind of get, because I actually wanted to get your opinion on a couple things.
Yeah, we can definitely hop on over to spoilers. Do we want to go do that now?
I'm good if you guys are.
Good.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Well, we are going to go into spoilers for Magnolia. Of course, check the show notes for timestamps, all of that good stuff. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer here. When we come back, we're going to be spoiling Magnolia.
I have to take everything and play it as it lays. Sometimes people need a little help. Sometimes people need to be forgiven. And that is a very tricky thing on my part, making that call. But you can forgive someone? Well, that's the tough part. What can we forgive?
Was that unclear?
Kinda.
Oh, God.
All right, so spoilers on for Magnolia. Did you guys catch my reference when I said we're gonna hop on over to spoilers?
Nope.
No.
Wow. Frogs hopping. Get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, spoilers on. We don't need to talk about that yet, but I want to kind of touch on Tom Cruise's character. Like, I forgot how just over the top, like, crazy that character is. And it's almost to the point of being like an absolute caricature. I mean, like, one of his first scenes, he comes on stage and he's just like, he yells, "Respect the cock." Like, it's wild. It's weird. And then you get that interview, the interview that starts to crack his exterior, all leading up to his big moment with his father that I read was basically improvised by him, that he used his own father's death to kind of channel his feelings for the character. And even Philip Seymour Hoffman tearing up behind him was unscripted. Like he just was reacting to Tom Cruise. Just absolutely powerful stuff. Yeah. So what did you guys think?
That's fascinating.
Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is so memorable in this movie. And I like your use of the phrase "over the top," because typically when we're talking about over the top, the actor's going too far.
Yeah.
But the character is over the top, not his performance. I think that's an important distinction to make, because he is pitch perfect in this. I think maybe he kind of toes the line a little bit in that super emotional part where he's actually talking to his father.
Yeah.
maybe he gets a little goofy in that, but I would certainly wouldn't take anything away from him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love how ridiculously intense he is. There's a part where he's getting ready to sit down for the interview and he's like in his underwear, and I mean, and just respect the cock. Like it's just that's just so bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we expect a certain level of intensity from Tom Cruise. That's what he does. He does it well. Sometimes he's a bit much, but I like Ben said, I think this is probably his best performance. And he's remarkable in it. I love him in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the only things that I had known about this going into it was that it was a really great Tom Cruise performance. And it 100% lived up to that. I think when he first takes the stage and you get a sense of his character, I was fully preparing for him to just like, for there to be an offstage moment where he's revealed as just to be kind of like a loser and just like the exact opposite of his onstage performance, but it's just so much more nuanced and actually more simple than that. You know, it's there isn't really a whole lot that he goes throughout this. You know, he's on stage and then he's in the interview for most of it, and then he's back on stage and then he's with his father. That's it. You know? But just the changes that he goes throughout those few scenes are just really just incredible, and it's all played up so well by Tom Cruise. I think this I don't know if it's canonically his best, but it might be my favorite performance of his.
Mine too. And it's wild because I mean, Tom Cruise nowadays, like the last like couple of decades, he's just Tom Cruise action star, Tom Cruise going to, you know, climb the Burj Khalifa, Tom Cruise like crazy action star thing. So to see him give, like to go back in his career and see him give like an incredibly emotional performance that is just like, it is so, like you said, Ben, very nuanced, and the character is, he has like this straightforward arc and this straightforward characterization, but in like, I agree that it is pretty simple, but there is such nuance and complexity to it. Like what you can extrapolate from it, that he like hates his father for leaving his mother and he had to take care of his mother and all of this stuff. And like how that led indirectly or directly to how he is as a human being now, as a functioning adult, spouting this just disgusting, like pickup artist bullshit stuff. It is such an incredibly interesting panoramic view of that one character in a movie that has this panoramic view of multiple interconnected characters in different varying degrees. And I found him to be, without question, the most captivating character for me and the most captivating performance by a long stretch in a movie that's filled with incredible performances from basically the entire cast. Yeah, I agree. I think one of my favorites though is John C. Reilly. Yeah.
I just love him in this movie. And what I wanted to ask you guys on this watch through, he's a police officer and he's supposed to be a perceptive person and he's supposed to pick up on things, and it's pretty clear that he's either, do you guys think he understood that Melora Walters, her character was strung out, but he just was willing to overlook it? Or was he so desperate for companionship and love that he was blind to the fact that she was high, and like pretty obviously high?
Yeah.
Like I'm curious what it was. He's described as being a helper. You know, he helps out William H. Macy's character in the end, and which is sort of touching. I'm curious what you guys thought, and I'm not sure which side of that I fall on, or if you guys had a completely different interpretation of that.
I definitely think it's the latter, that he was so desperate for companionship that he, like his otherwise perceptive kind of views and everything, like his perception was compromised because he was so in need of that human connection. And I think that blinded him to it, because like we know that kind of, well, I mean, I guess to an extent, that kind of perception, like him being a perceptive person, with that first scene with him when he's in the apartment with the woman and he finds the dead bodies or whatever they were. That's something that kind of showcases his, his perceptive abilities and everything. And then to see, like you said, Tiny, she was very clearly strung out. Like he's very much willing throughout the movie to give her these concessions and to give her the benefit of the doubt and everything. And I think it's because he, not even necessarily that he has a connection with her or feels a connection with her, but the fact that he feels like there could be a strong connection or a strong enough connection to where he could finally get what he's wanted out of life. I think that shows kind of a depth to the character that I think John C. Reilly embodies just wonderfully in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong read of that. No. His character, that whole scene.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I lean more towards the latter. I think it's also kind of established that he's not very good at his job. So I think that part of that kind of factors into part of it. Mm-hmm. While we're speaking of that storyline, I was gonna ask you guys, did you guys have a favorite storyline or favorite set of characters? Because I think initially I was kind of left wondering how the John C. Reilly storyline fits into all of it. Mm-hmm. But I think it definitely comes together in the end. But I was kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts.
I like my gut reaction is to say either Tom Cruise or John C. Reilly's characters. They're the standouts for me. But also, we haven't talked about him, but Philip Baker Hall, that whole arc was absolutely astounding to me, and he was unbelievably good. I think he just recently passed away within the last year or two.
Like last year, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, just what a loss. He was fantastic. But
yeah, another PTA collaborator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's that moment where he's talking about his daughter to his wife when he reveals that he has cheated on her and everything. And he says that he thinks that their daughter, or that it's Claudia, right? Yeah.
Claudia, yeah.
Yeah, that he thinks that she thinks that he molested her or did something to her. And she asks outright, like, well, did you? And then his response is just like, I honestly don't know. Like, I'm just like that is such an incredible, horrific, and like storytelling wise incredible like moment, because it's just it's so interesting. This character is going through, like, facing his mortality and facing the end of his life through a cancer diagnosis, and he's trying to make amends, and he's not even sure if what he is making amends for is something that happened or what he, like, where he stands with people exactly. And I just found that to be kind of really fascinating in terms of, like, the storytelling of, like, the humanity of the movie, or the kind of fractured humanity or fragile humanity of the characters in the entirety of the movie. I just thought that was a really interesting element to it.
Definitely, yeah. It's one of the more interesting arcs, because I think there's kind of a implication of sympathy or empathy early on with his character, because he's got cancer, he's dying, and he's trying to kind of put a button on his career or something. I'm not really sure, and he breaks down during the show, but then he goes home and we get these confessions where he cheated on his wife and the molestation thing, and I agree, it's such an interesting direction that he can't really answer whether or not he did. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's almost like he has trauma from it himself and he's repressed it himself. You know, that's his reaction to that, is that he chose to kind of repress it. That's really interesting. And they don't, you know, the movie doesn't really go into it any further or necessarily conclude that part. And that's, I kind of love that. Like I kind of, I'm sure this wasn't intentional, but it kind of speaks to the idea that a lot of sexual abuse is not talked about. It's not discussed, especially at this time. You know, pre Me Too movement. You know, we didn't talk about it. People didn't talk about their history with sexual abuse, and that's a shame. And it, again, I don't think that was intentional in the movie, but it's maybe a happy accident with it. But I love that as well. It also an interesting thing, there's a bunch of parallels between the characters, and a lot of them are pretty obvious, but the one that kind of has a lot of weight with regards to what we're talking about is the fact that her Philip Baker Hall's character is named Jimmy Gator, and John C. Reilly's character is also named Jim or Jimmy. And Melora Walters, her character, Claudia, it's her father, and then the guy that she's kind of falling for are both named Jim. And that's, you would think there'd be some disturbing trauma there, or some, you know, it would automatically trigger something in her that he literally has the same name as him. They're polar opposites, obviously. But that's one of the parallels that has the most implications in the movie for me. And I thought it was, I didn't really pick up on that the first time I saw it, but it really jumped out to me this time. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great writing.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I think the Philip Baker Hall scenes are probably one of my favorites. I think his character is like maybe the most complex character throughout the whole movie. I loved the arc that he goes through in this, and also the kid that shares a lot of his scenes as well. The way that he's written, really fantastically done. I think that one of PTA's running themes throughout all of his movies is fame, and the way that he touches on it here is just really incredible. And in each of his movies, it feels like he hits on a different aspect of fame and its consequences and its detriments and all of that. And so to see it here was just really great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know we haven't touched on all the characters and everything. I really like Julianne Moore. Her outburst scene at the pharmacy was amazing, and William H. Macy in the bar was incredible. Like, I thought the vulnerability of that character is incredible, and he captures it wonderfully. I don't know. This is a movie that I'm gonna have to rewatch again and again at some point. Like, it can't be another 15 years or however long it was before I watch this again, because it is up there.
I could easily talk about this movie for 2 hours. Like, it's just, there's so much to dissect. I really love it.
Speaking of dissecting, we haven't mentioned the frogs too.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad I didn't know that was coming in this movie.
Oh, you didn't know that at all?
I'm so glad about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because that moment just blew me away.
Nice.
Not only from a practical standpoint, but just to bring the whole themes of the movie together in that way was just incredible. And I think another running theme that this movie made me realize throughout PTA's movies is faith as well. because he deals with it here, and obviously the Master, a little bit in There Will Be Blood as well. Well, a lot in There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
But just the way that he implements that here is just really great. It makes me wonder just how he views organized religion.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Right.
Yeah. From what I read in the trivia, he, I guess late in the game, like maybe in pre-production, someone had told him like, oh, hey, there's this piece of scripture that I think from the Old Testament that talks about, blah, 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 plague of frogs, it kind of fits here. And so he went back and he like, I think it's 87. It's like
8-2.
8-2. Yeah. So like
Exodus 8-2.
Yeah. And so there are like tons of references to 8 and 2 and 82.
Yeah, you see someone holding a sign in the studio audience.
Yeah.
With that scripture passage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, and this is just nothing really, this is a nothing burger of a comment, but the tagline for this movie always bothered me. Because, and this is dumb, I don't know why, but it always bothered me because the tagline of the movie is, things fall down, people look up, and when it rains, it pours. And I just feel like that has like a certain cadence to it that feels like it should be more impactful, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it always kind of sticks in my craw a little bit.
That's like the least interesting thing about the movie. Like that's such a uninteresting tagline.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Compared to how fascinating the movie is. Yeah.
Right.
That's weird.
PTA definitely didn't write that.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, that's what was wild to me is that it's like it's all over like the marketing and like it's in the trailer and like I think why it sticks in my craw so much is that back in like high school when I was like perusing the IMDb message boards, RIP, they don't exist anymore. Like someone's like signature in all of their posts was that tagline, and like I had not seen the movie yet, and I didn't know the context, and I was like, that's such a weird, like it's such a weird phrasing. I don't understand, but I don't know. Anyway, it's all just my idiosyncrasies. So, yeah.
Yeah. To go back to the frogs real quick for me, that was the big thing about this movie that I remembered that I kind of hated. I was just like, I remember watching it back in, I probably watched this in like 2001 or 2 or something like that. I just remember thinking it's too much. He took it too far. This is too unbelievable. I can't get on board with this. And I almost wrote the movie off because of it.
Oh, wow.
But 20 years later, I fully love it. I think it was a great idea. And because of, again, that prologue setting up the idea that, crazy shit happens. And then we have young Stanley watching it happen in the library, and he goes, this happens. This is something that happens.
Yeah.
And it kind of does. There's instances of it happening in real life. It's a very incredibly rare phenomenon, and it's explainable. It's actually not a phenomenon. It's explainable, but it's yeah. And I just thought it was such a it's kind of funny how it's almost not addressed too. Like none of the characters really address it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's just such a fun thing to do. Yeah.
You almost wonder if it's only something that happened to them, or if only they see it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do like the little, in addition to what's his face saying that, like I love the little like picture of like the painting or whatever that says, but it did happen. Like okay. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I ever really thought about it as like a figment of their imagination, if that's what you're getting at, Ben.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to rewatch it and kind of revisit that.
Yeah, because I don't know if anyone else comments on it. Like, I don't know if there's any like news reports or anything. I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
I also kind of like the actual ending of the movie where Officer Jim is sitting down and explaining to Claudia, a teary-eyed Claudia that, I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to let you just walk away from us, from the connection we have. And her just absolute joy of a reaction to that is just nice. And I think the reason why I like it is because it's a happy ending, but it's not like sappy. It's not ridiculous, to quote Stanley, this is something that happens. This happens, I just kind of like it because there's obviously so much negativity in the movie, and there's not a ton of closure for a lot of characters, or we don't see it, right? We see Tom Cruise's character, Frank T.J. Mackey, walking into the hospital to go presumably have a conversation with his stepmother, who he is either estranged from or has never met or something like that. And there's, young Stanley doesn't really have any kind of happy ending or conclusion with his dad. There's a lot of stuff left in the air, and that's fine. But I kind of just like the conclusivity and the happiness of that final scene. And I haven't really talked about Melora Walters, but she's so good in this. I really only know her from P.T. Anderson movies. This and Boogie Nights is what jumps to mind, and she's fantastic in both of them. So I really love her performance in that moment, because it's just her, it's a close-up of her reaction to that, and I love it. I thought it was a pretty interesting way to end the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, have we sufficiently talked out Magnolia? Anything?
I don't know about talked out, but we talked about it a lot.
True.
One more thing that I loved, which kind of goes along with the frogs and the idea that this is like part of their imagination, but the montage where they're all singing that song.
Yeah.
I forget what the song is, but where they're all singing together. I thought that was a really fantastic touch.
Yeah. It's funny. It's
Amy
Mann. Wise Up.
Right.
It's interesting because Ben, you mentioned doing a thing for
Community.
Yeah, one of the first episodes, I think it's episode 2 or 3, they do an entire Wise Up montage thing in reference to this.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's Spanish 101, the first or second episode after the pilot. But anyway,
awesome.
Yeah, so do we want to go ahead and go into ratings and status on our great movies list?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I will go last. If Tiny...
I can go first.
Okay. Yeah, Tiny, go ahead and get us kicked off.
Okay. Thumbs up, absolutely. This is my favorite of the 3 we reviewed tonight.
Nice.
I gave it 4 stars. I'd probably bump that to 4.5 after talking it out. And definitely would be on my greatest movies list.
Nice. Ben, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely thumbs up. I gave it 5 stars.
Nice.
Yeah, it wasn't really a tough decision for me, but 5 stars. It's tempting to say, because this is the only PTA movie on the Ebert list, which is kind of incredible, because he was alive for There Will Be Blood and The Master and Boogie Nights. So it's tempting to just replace this with another PTA movie, but I think this one would go on my list for sure. There will be more PTA movies on my list because I think There Will Be Blood is one of the greatest movies ever made. But
word.
Yeah. This would go on my list.
Sweet. It's funny because I initially rated this 4 stars. In talking it out, I think I am actually going to bump it up to 4.5. just because it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Thumbs up would definitely be on my great movies list. And yeah, that's about all I've got for it.
Can I ask, what is your guys' favorite PTA movie?
Ooh.
It's so hard to pick.
There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, I think for me it's There Will Be Blood as well. Yeah.
Boogie Nights in a close second.
Sure.
See, Boogie Nights is a movie that I will need to rewatch at some point, because I think I only saw it in maybe not until high school, and I think that might have been the only time I saw it.
Oh wow. Yeah, you definitely need to see it again. It's super good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I only watched it for the first time, I think last year, maybe the year before.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably say There Will Be Blood is my favorite of his as well, but also The Master, incredible. Licorice Pizza, I really love as well. Like that's probably my fourth favorite of his. Nice.
Yeah, I really love Licorice Pizza as well. Yeah. All right, well, shall we pick our movies for next time?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, nice. Did I already give mine? Yeah, I already said all that. Okay, yeah. All right, so I guess we'll go in reverse chronological order from this. Is that how we usually do it? So I'd start us off since
sure
I had the most recent one. Anyway.
Why not?
Yeah. So for part 16 of our Ebert's Great Movies List review series, it's interesting because I had a few titles that I was considering, and then like while I had one, I've had an interesting kind of back and forth here, but like in talking about M, I thought like, oh, it would be neat to do this instead, so I switched it over to that, and then by the end of our conversation here, just a few moments ago, I switched it back to the original one. So anyway, the movie I have selected for part 16 is a 1922 horror film that is currently streamable on Canopy and Shudder. It is F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. The plot summary is: vampire Count Orlok is interested in a new residence and in his real estate agent's young wife. F.W. Murnau's unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So that is my pick for the next installment. Yep.
Sweet.
I've almost picked that myself. I'm glad you did.
Oh, nice.
Is it because it's 100 years old now?
That is part of it. Yep. That is part of it. And the other part of it is that hopefully we'll be able to do the next installment sometime in October. I don't know, with Heartland and everything. So I thought it would be nice to do like a horror movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So, Tiny, do you want to give us your pick for the next installment?
Yes. This is another choice of something I've just never seen before, and it's a famous movie. Nice. I'm going with 1950's All About Eve.
Oh, nice.
The plot synopsis is: a seemingly timid but secretly ruthless ingenue insinuates herself into the lives of an aging Broadway star and her circle of theater friends. Nice. So, yeah, I really don't have much to say other than I just never seen it and I want to see it.
Sweet.
That is a great movie.
Awesome.
Cool.
Is it streamable anywhere?
It is available on Hulu.
Nice.
And while I have you guys, I want to give an update to the average release year of our picks so far. I meant to do that. We are up to 1967. That's where we're at now, our average year of release with the movies we've picked so far in this project. And to add another little fun little trivia in there, I narrowed it down to about February 1967.
Oh, that's awesome.
The three movies that were dominating the box office in February 1967 were Dr. Zhivago, Grand Prix, which I believe some of that was filmed at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow.
And I'd never heard of this one. The Bible in the Beginning.
Oh,
those were
wow.
the 3 movies that were kind of dominating the box office in February 1967.
That is awesome. That's so awesome.
Well done.
Nice.
Thank you.
Matt, sorry, did you say if Nosferatu is streaming anywhere?
Yeah, it is streaming on Canopy and on Shudder.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I'm gonna pull an Audible because I had a totally different movie picked as well. But Matt, since you're picking another silent movie, I'm gonna pick a silent comedy.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna drag the average year down even more. One sec here. The movie that I'll pick, I read this really fantastic book earlier this year by Dana Stevens about Buster Keaton called Cameraman. If either of you has a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. So the Buster Keaton movie that I'll pick, because there are several, is his widely considered his masterpiece, The General, from 1926. Streaming on Prime Video and Paramount Plus and Canopy and Tubi. And that's pretty much all you need to know.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Sweet.
This is great because all 3 of these are blind spots for me. And The General is one that I've wanted to watch for a while, so this is going to be awesome. Nice.
Yeah. I've never seen any Buster Keaton. So
yeah. In fact, the only Buster Keaton thing that I've seen is let me double check to make sure because I don't want another Agnes Varda situation here. No, the only thing of
Agnes Varda did not direct The General.
Ah, damn it. No, the only thing of Buster Keaton that I've seen is actually an episode of The Twilight Zone that he was in season 3, Once Upon a Time. He plays a time-traveling guy. Oh, no, wait. I guess he appeared in Sunset Boulevard.
Yep.
But yeah. But no, that's the only thing I've really seen of his. So yeah.
Well, and I'm also, this is a pretty short movie, so I'm also going to assign some extra homework as well.
Oh, God.
There are several of his short films available pretty much to stream anywhere. But the one that I would recommend, you can find it on YouTube. It's called 1 Week. It's like 20 minutes long. It's really great. So watch that as well on YouTube.
All right.
Or any of his other short films.
Nice. 1 Week short film. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes of this episode so that listeners can watch along with us. Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm very excited. Before we get to wrapping up and everything, Ben, do you want to give us another kind of pitch for your website, themoviestate.com, what's coming up and everything, and where people can find you online and everything?
Sure. Like I said, I'll have review of Blonde coming out soon. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, I guess that depends on Netflix. But also weekly coverage of The Rings of Power. Have any of you guys caught up to that yet?
I haven't,
no.
But it's another show that I'm planning on doing episode reviews on Patreon. But yeah, how is it? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to tell if it's because I'm a huge Tolkien nerd, or if it's actually a good show. But
okay,
I like it so far.
Sweet, nice,
cool.
Tiny, you haven't watched any of it?
No, I'm gonna wait for it all to come out and
gotcha.
I'll watch it then. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair.
Sweet.
Watch it on like the biggest screen you have.
Yeah, I've heard visually it's top notch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. And Tiny, any parting thoughts? Anything you want to promote or anything?
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay, nice. Well, follow Tiny on Obsessive Tiny on Letterboxd, and follow Ben at The Movie State. All right, well, the only thing I'll say is check out Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. We have damn near daily stuff that I'm putting out there. I'm getting ready to do a review of Stephen King's new book, Fairy Tale, piece by piece. So each, like 6 chapters at a time, I'm stopping reading and sharing my thoughts and then posting them on Patreon. So read along with me. I'm also doing a very fun episode review series on the Netflix sci-fi German series Dark, which is spectacular. And then I've got the aforementioned on Patreon, For All Mankind episode reviews coming, and I'm going to be catching up on Marvel shows eventually. So a lot of stuff there. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening. And also check out the other shows, Anthology, which I'm back at. I've done like 10 or 12 episodes so far. It's a lot of fun. Check that out. And also Tower Junkies, which is always a good time. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. Interesting.
I think part of the reason why the Emmys aren't as exciting is because there's so much of it. Like,
yeah,
the Emmys and the Golden Globes, like Golden Globes is movies and TV shows, and Emmys just has so many categories. It feels like a lot of stuff just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And that's the cool thing about both of them, is that a lot of people get a lot of chances, which is nice. But I feel like it's just not as special because there's so many categories. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts.
I agree. And the television medium itself is very broad. So like, it's not like it's something that, I mean, it's hard enough to keep up with all the movies that come out and everything, and to think that like, oh, I'm going to dedicate 10 hours of my life to watching this show. Like that's a big commitment in my eyes. And I say that as someone who has watched 2.5 seasons of MasterChef in the last month. But anyway.
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.